let's do this. I tried to do a video yesterday. I think the topic was a pretty good one. I got interrupted and I just ended it abruptly. And maybe I'll try to do that one over again someday. But moving on, gotta keep moving. So my wife and I were listening this morning to a woman speaking on her YouTube channel, and she was kind of talking about the topic that I talk here about, but she was also kind of promoting her nonprofit and talking about donations and stuff like that. So it wasn't that interesting, but she did say something that, of course, was obvious, and I had to agree with, and it's something I've been hearing a lot. So since I've been hearing it a lot, and so today I just wanted to talk about it. And it's the notion that our leadership has failed us. Leadership. I don't even want to call them leaders. They're seriously feckless. I think future generations will look back on our current leaders and just label them whole hawk as a criminal class. They're really a criminal class. They're not providing leadership. They're lining their pockets. There's a lot of corruption taking place at the top of all these governments. And even at the level of the UN, there's a lot of pocket lining when they try to do something like the conferences of the parties, the IPCC. These are UN programs. They're supposed to be addressing climate change. I like to call it global heating, but I'll use the words they use. In fact, IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, right? It's right there in the title. And these things are useless. Worse than useless. They're misleading. There's even misinformation in some of these things. Meaning in the summaries. If you go deep into the data, the actual scientific data published by the IPCC, you'll find the papers and you can read them and you can look at the charts. But when they get around to summarizing them for policymakers, that whole sausage-making process is dominated by lobbyists and politicians and diplomats, and it just becomes narrative warfare, which is what I was trying to talk about yesterday. It got interrupted. It just becomes narrative warfare, and again, using the definition I was trying to haul to the front yesterday, narrative warfare is not strictly misinformation or disinformation, although it will have some of that. Narrative warfare is worse. Narrative warfare tries to strip discussions and even words themselves of meaning. So you can talk, but you can't talk meaningfully. And this goes back to linguistics. People like Noam Chomsky and all the others will tell you, you can't think clearly about subjects that you don't have words for. And you can't solve problems that you can't think clearly about. So one of the ways in which our corrupt leadership doesn't have to deal with climate change or global heating or whatever you want to call it is simply by waging narrative warfare. They wage narrative warfare on us, we people who will be affected. They won't be, but we will be. They're waging narrative warfare on us, and so that we are deprived of meaningful ways to talk about the problem. That was going to be my video yesterday. Maybe I got the point across. I don't know. So today I was listening to this woman talk, and the one thing I got out of it was that, once again, I'm hearing this a lot recently, that the leadership has failed us, and they did this deliberately. They deliberately decided to wage narrative warfare. That was a call. They made that call, and so they did it. And now we have had an absolute failure of leadership. What does that look like? It means that no one knows what to talk about. Nobody knows what possible solutions there are. Nobody understands even the risks that they're facing. I guess they'll be surprised, right? The risks will just hit them one day and they'll say, oh, well, I guess that was also coming. Yeah, it was. It was there all along. But because, we weren't allowed to have adult conversations about things and speak and listen clearly to those conversations, then we got surprised, right? We were surprised. And the saying that I've heard for many years, and actually went ahead today and looked it up, and it's interesting. The saying is, the fish rots from the head. The fish rots from the head. And it's variously attributed to the Turks, to the Chinese. You can imagine, trying to translate this from different languages into English. But basically, it's used everywhere these days, that the fish rots from the head. So the whole climate change, global warming thing is now rotten. It's rotten. We will never turn the corner. There's been 30 COPs, conferences of the parties. Right there, the narrative warfare begins. You don't even know what that means. Conference of the parties. There's no meaning. See, it's stripped of meaning. This is narrative warfare. They stripped it of meaning right out of the gate, because we've had 30 of these things now, and people still don't know what they're about. We've had 30 COPs, and they never, ever talk plainly about anything. It's just a lot of razzmatazz, okay? Fancy footwork, dazzle them with footwork. And of course they have a big party and they're flying jets and everything, private jets, and they're doing all the things, and there's money being thrown around and prostitutes and drugs. I mean, you can just imagine, right? If tens of thousands of people show up at these things, and I don't mean as spectators, I mean participants. Half of them are lobbyists. And they get a little lanyard they wear around their neck, and it shows that they're a lobbyist, and they're in there handing out money, and they're in there handing out wine, expensive watches, and, nothing happens. So the fish rots from the head. And the IPCC process is part of the head. It's part of the UN. And the COP process is part of the head. And everyone's government, any government, there's 196 countries, more or less, and every government, all of them are rotten at the top. And it doesn't even matter who you elect anymore these days. And I'll get to in a moment why that's the case and why that will always be the case. It doesn't matter who you elect or what their political party is or their persuasion. Joe Biden was our president, our last president. He did virtually nothing for this problem. And key to my saying that was not that he didn't pass legislation or allocate money. That's a thing. But passing legislation allocating money can be reversed. That's what Donald Trump did. As soon as he came in, he just said, "No, we're not doing any of that stuff." So you can do something, but it's really just aspirational. And the things he was doing, he wrapped all of his climate actions into a bill called the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act. So it wasn't even about the topic that matters most. Well, certainly to me, but it's going to matter to you too. If it doesn't yet, trust me, hang around long enough without dying, and you'll find out. You're going to find out, okay? Everybody's going to find out. It's not just you. You're all going to find out. So that's how it is. He wrapped it all up in this inflation economic wording and pushed it out. And the thing that Joe Biden should have done, which he did not do, because he was just as rotten as the rest of them on at least this topic, maybe others. Ask Donald Trump. He'll tell you all about the auto pen. But he was, as a leader, he was rotten on this topic, which is Joe Biden did not educate the American people. If you can educate people, that sticks. Now maybe Donald Trump comes along and says, that Biden, he's just a woke old man, and he doesn't know anything. He's not even a scientist. He doesn't know nothing. Everything he told you is wrong. But some of the people will have heard it. Anyway, because Donald Trump didn't have the microphone, right? Because he was out of office. So when Biden was in office, he could have got on the microphone. He could have had, like FDR did, fireside chats, about what was going on in the country. And Joe Biden could have had fireside chats, or he could have invited experts into the White House, and he could have sat down with the experts and just let them lecture the American public with the president sitting right there. And then when Kamala Harris was running for president, that was Joe Biden's vice president. Now she is going to run for president herself. And she was running against Donald Trump. She just flat out came out and said it in some interview or some debate with Donald Trump she said it quickly. She was like, oh, and this and that and the other thing. And then this, that, and the other thing was, oh yeah, we're going to drill, keep the price of gasoline low, do a bunch of other things because that's what people want to hear. And so she just said it. That's it. If she came close to any commentary on greenhouse gas emissions and CO2 emissions, the CO2 levels in the atmosphere, and global warming, heating, and all the catastrophes that are now coming our way and really have already come ashore. I mean, it's landed. Sorry, we're in the thick of it now. Oh, it can get worse, by the way, but we're definitely in the thick of it. She could have said a bunch of things about that. She could have said we need to follow the science. She could have said the science is settled. She could have said that global heating is not a hoax. This has been well established. We've had 6 IPCC reports, and we're up to the COP, whatever it was at the time, COP 29 probably. And we're working this, and we need the help from the American public, and you all need to understand that this is coming for you. And she could cite extreme weather examples, and she could cite problems in other countries. Not that Americans care, because of course they don't know there's other countries in the world, because Americans are illiterate and dumb. And I say that as an American, okay, so I can get away with that. Americans are the dumbest people on earth per capita. If they can't find almost any country on the map, even Canada. They couldn't find Canada on a map of the world. They don't even think the earth is a globe. They don't even know that there's a northern and southern hemisphere. Maybe they can list some of the continents, probably not. Americans are the dumbest people on earth for being such an advanced country. We have really let down Americans through our education system, and they are not ready for this. They are not ready for this, and they're going to burn. They're going down. And what am I supposed to think about that? Am I supposed to feel something about that? They're going to burn. Okay? But the reason they're going to burn is because nobody has explained it to them. Nobody. The mainstream media doesn't do it. Even if you get like a PBS or a DW or a BBC documentary on global heating, or they never call it global heating, they always call it climate change. Narrative warfare. Okay, what the hell is climate change? Sounds fine to me. Why are we worried about it? Yeah, narrative warfare has no meaning. Global heating, though, does have meaning. And you can point to global heating and say, well, melting ice, heat, droughts, heat, water evaporation, drying up of reservoirs, heat, crop failures, heat waves, heat. Okay, physics. We're talking about physics now. But the leadership won't do that. They won't connect the dots for people. And they just leave them twisting in the wind. And that's because the fish rots from the head. And we're never going to get leadership on any of this. Never. We're never going to get leadership on any of this. Well, we could vote differently. Go ahead. Vote for whoever you want. I promise you. I can just foursquare promise you that anybody you vote into office, any party you want to support, any combination of parties that you want to run the country won't do this, because the fish rots from the head. And as regards global heating and the resulting climate change, they're not going to come clean with you. They can't. They won't. They never will. And I'll tell you exactly why. I'll tell you exactly why we are stuck in this. And then I'm going to try and help you find a way out. Because I think there might be, possibly, for some people, if they're lucky. But that's what we've got, so we've got to go with it. So why do I know that these people are always going to fuck you over? Because the thing that must be done to abate, and I don't want to use the word stop or fix or reverse, heaven forbid that word. The thing that is going to come the closest to abating the constantly increasing levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. The only way we can rein this in and at least stop it from going up, you just plateau it, right? Just get it to a level and make it stay there. At least right now it's just going up. It's just going up without bound. And there's some evidence that it's even going up even faster than it has in the past. So it's not even linear. So there's some kind of an exponent. So the only chance we have of plateauing this thing, never reducing it, plateauing the level of greenhouse gases, and then taking whatever that offers us, or whatever that is, that could be enough already. We're at 430 parts per million. That might be enough to end Western global industrialized civilization. Just end it outright. Just turn it off, okay? The only way you can possibly avoid that outcome and stabilize greenhouse gases in the atmosphere to a certain point is to stop burning fossil fuels. That's right. Because that's the source of the greenhouse gases. Carbon dioxide and methane are the results of methane is mostly the result of the mining and manufacturing operations around crude oil and also around fracking for natural gas. So methane releases are generally waste. But CO2 emissions are tied directly, and this is a hard link to industrial activity. Manufacturing. That's it. That's where you start. Manufacturing. And I mean manufacturing of cars and manufacturing of computers. I mean manufacturing. Whatever. Toothpicks. All of it. All of it. All manufacturing. Okay. Will I allow some old guy in the back of his garage who's got a little shop and he makes children's toys out of wood like Geppetto, right? Geppetto, the puppet maker, right? In the story? No. He's completely embedded in a manufacturing society. He only has a garage with electricity and tools and woodworking machines because of industrialization. So he's in his back of his garage working with wood, making children's toys, painting them with enamel, and giving them away to all the good children at Christmas. That old guy, he's contributing to global heating because he's embedded in an enormous manufacturing footprint. There's no way out. There's nothing you do that is not interfacing constantly with the manufacturing process. Whether you are manufacturing yourself or simply buying things off the shelf or picking up something in the street, everything you have, everything you own, everything you think you want to own, everything you ever owned, everything that you just picked up off the street was a result of some manufacturing process. And those manufacturing processes rely heavily, I'll say 90% of their output is directly harnessed to fossil fuel consumption. They use a lot of electricity, but the electricity also comes from fossil fuels. Most of the manufacturing regions of the world, they burn coal and maybe more recently natural gas to do their manufacturing, to create electricity to do their manufacturing. There are lots of solar farms and there's lots of wind farms, right, with turbines that you can get electricity from, but they're only available part of the time. They're available during the day or when the wind is blowing, then they're not available. And so there's this thing called baseline power that's available all the time. And maybe they throttle it up if there's on a cloudy day, okay, maybe they throttle up the baseline to provide more electricity. And then they'll throttle it down on a sunny day when the solar panels are really working really well. But it has to be there, okay, because it's providing baseline. And all they do is they trim the baseline up and down depending on how much they can replace that electric load with what they call renewable. But well, let's be fair. The solar panels are embedded in the manufacturing process. We don't grow them on trees. What do you think the solar panel comes from? It's manufactured. And again, how is that happening? Well, again, most manufacturing, 90% dependent on fossil fuels. What about your wind turbine? It's even worse. It's basically, it must be 100%. The only part of manufacturing solar panels and wind turbines and other similar things, the only part of that that's strictly electric is probably the lighting and maybe some of the machine tools. I mean, running the machine tools, but you have to manufacture the machine tools. Okay, do you see where this goes? Yeah, you can have a robot assembling solar panels like this, right? But where'd that robot come from? I know the robot runs on electricity, and I know that the computers that program and operate the robot run on electricity. I get that part, but where did that robot come from? That's a manufacturing process. You can't have that without fossil fuels because you can't build robots with solar panels because you don't build robots with electricity. You can't build computers with just electricity. You have to have fossil fuel inputs at most of the process. So there's a reason why the leaders at the top and the IPCC process and the COP process and all the other things and all the influencers and all the politicians and all the everything, right? There's a reason why you'll never hear them say, we must leave fossil fuels in the ground. Nope. They're not going to do that. Now, they'll say a lot of other things. And in my talk yesterday on narrative warfare, I brought up some of the ways that they get around the problem, which is fossil fuel consumption. And they get around it by saying, okay, we're going to do something else. We're not going to leave fossil fuels in the ground because that's bad. People die. Lots of people. Because they can't get their things. Anything. No thing is available to them if you stop burning fossil fuels. They can breathe. Okay, they can breathe, but that's it. Do I have to explain that? I feel like I've said that so many times and explained that and given examples of that so many times on this channel. Do I still have to say that? Do I have to explain that, why that's true? The leaders can't touch it. They can't go there. They won't. They'll go everywhere else. They'll green the economy. They'll decarbonize. Yeah. Sounds sexy, right? They'll reduce emissions. And if you ask them, well, how are you going to reduce emissions? That might be interesting. If you could reduce greenhouse gas emissions from all your manufacturing and shipping and receiving and logistics and all the other stuff and electricity generation using coal and natural gas. Okay, so you're going to reduce emissions. How are you going to do that? Well, we don't know. We're going to have to be innovative. Okay, innovative. That doesn't mean anything. Again, narrative warfare. We're going to innovate. That doesn't mean anything in this context. Your problem is with physics, okay? The greenhouse effect is real, and it's caused by CO2 emissions. We'll just stick with that for now. And those CO2 emissions are coming from fossil fuel consumption, and that shit is real. That entire chain of pain is real. So you're going to reduce emissions? How? Well, we're going to have to innovate. We're going to have to throw money at the project. We're going to have to get our best minds working on it. Yeah, I thought they were all working on artificial intelligence. So who are you talking about? And when are you going to start? And who's going to pay for this? Because, you're going to reduce emissions. That's going to be the solution? Yeah, okay. When? How? You're up against the laws of physics, my friend. You can't just bloviate your way through this. I mean, okay, if you want to engage in narrative warfare, I guess you can bloviate. You can just say a bunch of words. We're going to decarbonize, and while we're doing that, we're going to do capture emissions and reduce emissions, and on our way to a green economy. See, I just did it. It means nothing. I'm telling you right now, that means nothing. And you could talk to 50 people and get 50 different answers, and actually you'd have one common answer for most of the 50 different people, and the answer would be, I don't know. I don't know what that means. What does that mean? Is it going to affect me? No? Oh, okay, well then I don't care either. I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't care. Now, but if you walk up to 50 people on the street and you tell them, to save ourselves from the climate crisis, whatever that means, to save ourselves from the climate crisis, we're going to have to reduce fossil fuel consumption to zero. Zero. Not net zero. That's also narrative warfare. Zero. You mean I can't drive my car? We can drive your car if you have an electric car. Although we have to have fossil fuels to make electric cars. But if you happen to have an electric car, then you could drive an electric car. But you can't drive a car with fossil fuels. How am I supposed to get to work? I don't know. Walk? Ride a bike? Yeah, but I work 40 miles away in heavy traffic. And I live in the suburbs. And there's no trains in the suburbs. I would have to ride my bike 5 miles just to get to a rail station. And then I'm lugging around my laptop computer, my cell phone, my bike on the rail. And that's not going to work. Right now I can just get in my car, throw my laptop computer in the passenger seat and go. You tell me I can't do that? No, you can't do that. Well, screw you. I'm going to keep doing that. No, you won't. Because we have to stop burning fossil fuels. Yeah, but weren't they going to green the economy or something? Why don't we just do that? Why don't we just reduce emissions? But they haven't figured out how to do any of that stuff. So, as of now, no. As of now, the only game left in town as of now is to just leave the fossil fuels in the ground. But you can't do that. No, you can talk about greening the economy, reducing emissions, decarbonize the economy, alternative energy, reduce consumption. You can talk about those things, but you can't talk about the fundamental thing, the thing where the thing happens. It's not happening in consumption. It's not happening anywhere else. It's not even happening in manufacturing. It's happening in fossil fuel consumption, which is the key ingredient, the key activity to every single other activity. And they won't do it. The elites are not going to do it. Trust me on this. They are not going to do it. And I am sympathetic that they can't do that. I understand why they can't do that. They're not going to do it because they can't. And I understand why they can't. And I agree. Yeah, you can't do that. But that's what has to happen. But you're not going to do that. That's the only solution. And you're not going to do it. Fine. All those things can be true. Look up the definition of a wicked problem. It's in Wikipedia. It's a real thing. A wicked problem. And I'll save you looking it up. It's a problem that admits to no solution. Oh, that can't be right. All problems have solutions. Yeah, you think so? That's narrative warfare too. Somebody convinced you that's true. And there's a lot of problems they haven't solved. Have you noticed? Maybe you've lost track. They never cured cancer. They never cured obesity. They haven't eliminated pedestrian fatalities due to automobiles. They also haven't eliminated, although they've gotten some distance, to eliminating fatalities of any kind from automobiles. They can't solve the problem with gun violence, not in this country, not in America. Oh, there's a lot of things that we just kind of sweep under the rug. It's like, well, we can't solve that. Where's the rug? I got a broom right here. Let's just sweep that under the rug. Thank you. I'll just move on with my life. There's a lot of problems that we never solved because we couldn't. Every problem has a solution. No, that's not true. I could sit here for 20 minutes naming problems just off the top of my head without even doing any research. Just name problems off the top of my head for 20 solid minutes. I'd be hoarse. I'd be depressed by the time I was done. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I got better things to do than prove to you that there are virtually countless problems that we have never solved. Never solved. Why? Because it would cause another problem for somebody. And that somebody doesn't want that problem. And so they go to the head of the fish and they say, don't cause us trouble. Here, we'll give you some money. Here's some campaign donations, whatever they're calling it. Whatever they're going to call it in the future. Campaign donations. Okay, it's all bribery. Corruption, right? So we can't solve problems. Inflation, cost of healthcare, the tragedies in our schools. I'm talking about America, but some of this stuff also applies to other countries. We have more problems in America per capita than any nation on earth that ever existed because we can't solve problems. They are all wicked problems and we can't solve them. There are no solutions. And you want me to take the 20 minutes to just list them just for America? Oh, no, I'm not going to. The fish rots from the head. And as a result, we can't solve problems. And the global problem of global heating, which is we're making changes to the Earth dynamic system, in particular, the heat retention qualities of the atmosphere through the greenhouse gas effect. And we're enhancing the greenhouse gas effect by adding greenhouse gases, methane and CO2. And how are we doing that? By fucking around with fossil fuels. There you go. And we can't never not do that. We will do that until the bitter end. So this woman was saying today, she was saying, basically, the fish rots from the head. And she was observing, that's my interpretation, but she basically said that. Because the leadership is corrupt and paralyzed with indecision, I'll give them that. The leadership is both and or corrupt and or paralyzed with indecision. or paralyzed with their own ignorance. They just don't understand it. But I will allow for that too. Whatever the reason, they're not doing anything for us. They're not going to green the economy because they can't. They're not going to decarbonize the economy because they can't. They're not going to reduce emissions because there's no way to do that. If there was a way to do these things, they would have done it. We're up to COP30. COP30, and all the things I just mentioned are still agenda items because they've never been accomplished. And no one is trying it. And there are no pilot projects that actually work, that will actually work at scale for enough of the planet to make a difference. And so there you go. No solution. 30 years of doing conferences of the parties. 6 IPCC reports. Nothing. Crickets. Nothing to go with. Not the first glimpse of a change. And because the fish is rotting from the head, there's nothing coming for us to save us. Nothing. And the problem with nothing coming down from above, from on high to save us, is that global heating is lethal. Oh yes, it is abundantly lethal. We are probably heading, even given current conditions, meaning if we just held everything where it is now, 430 parts per million, and we could reduce additional emissions to zero. So no more enhancements of the greenhouse effect, current greenhouse effect, and we just held things where they are. We're probably heading for uninhabitable Earth. Uninhabitable Earth. Oh, but we could do solar radiation management. Yeah, the fuck you will. Try to get a treaty, try to get a globally acceptable treaty to do one fucking thing in fucking space, mind you, that's going to cost trillions of dollars over decades of constant, uninterrupted effort by the entirety of the human population, okay? Just come up with one fucking thing that we can do on that level with that commitment and that amount of money. Just one. You can't. Hell, some country tries to unilaterally do solar radiation management, SRM. It'll probably trigger World War fucking III. What'd you just put up there? Why are my solar panels not working anymore? My weather just changed. What did you put up there? Well, we're doing solar radiation management. Solar? You mean like the fucking sun that we all live on? And you're going to manage, whatever that means. You're going to manage the sun to suit yourself? And we're all going to sit here and say, oh, thank you. We are managing the sun. How nice. How novel. How clever. No, they are not going to let that happen. And if you didn't deorbit that entire $1 trillion project like now, then you're going to be on the threshold of World War III. They're not going to allow it. They're not going to allow it. Solar radiation management? Are you fucking kidding me? Wow. Wow. Just wow. Can we be real? Can we just not talk horse shit? Solar radiation management. You're going to block the sun. Oh, golf clap. Yeah, that's going to be real fucking popular, okay? No, you're not doing that shit. Shut up about it. Solar radiation management. Oh, no, actually, I don't think so. So what are you going to do? You're going to suffer. This just keeps going. They can't stop burning fossil fuels. They can't stop emitting CO2 and methane into the atmosphere. They have no control over the greenhouse effect. They're not doing any solar radiation management at all. They're not even going to get to first base with that. They're not going to do geoengineering. They're not going to have a green economy. They're not going to shut down manufacturing. They're not going to do anything with decarbonization. They're not doing fuck all. And now to you. What are you going to do? Now, my wife and I, we argue about this. She's an old hippie. I'm an old hippie too. But I'm an old hippie who happens to be a scientist. So that kind of puts a kibosh on how much horse shit I'm willing to put up with. Either it works or it doesn't. And, she being an old hippie, she believes, and I would like to believe this too, if it was possible, I would say, oh yeah, we'll just do that. She likes to believe that if the right kind of people with, good feelings about humanity and the proper amount of empathy, they get together and they talk among themselves and stroke their beards and refer to the Bible or refer to the Hindu texts or whatever, and meditate and live in a teepee or whatever they're going to do, right? You know the drill. If enough people get together and they're all on the same page, then they can change the world. Was it Margaret Mead? I mean, this just bends my crank, right? Margaret Mead said, never doubt that a small group of people can change the world, because that's the only thing that ever has. A small group of people never changed anything. Okay. A small group of people, it was still like 10 or 20,000 people, okay, but a small group of people did give us atomic weapons, did bomb Japan with them, and did start the Cold War and the still looming to this day, still out there, nuclear holocaust. A small group of people did do that. Do I have another example? I can't come up with anything. A small group of people wrote the Montreal Protocols to rein in the use of chlorofluorocarbons in industrial processes and air conditioners, because they were causing harm to the ozone layer once they were released to the atmosphere. And a small group of people did sign the Montreal Protocols, and however, and we did come up with different types of fluorocarbons that could do similar industrial things without being fluorocarbons, okay? And those are available, and yet still, to this day, there is still, somewhere in the world, they don't even know where it is, it's probably China, but somewhere in the world, there is some manufacturer cranking out enormous amounts of chlorofluorocarbons that are supposedly banned in the Montreal Protocol. And the only reason there was anybody who was even willing to give lip service to not having chlorofluorocarbons present in industrial processes, the only reason there was anybody who was willing to even have that talk was because there were alternatives. But when you come around to try to get rid of fossil fuels, there's no alternative for the things we do. Well, you could stop doing the things you do, but that's 99.9% of what keeps people alive. Food, clothing, shelter, water, electricity, medications, travel, supply chains, like 20 minutes. Take me 20 minutes to list all the things. I can just look around the room. To get the first 10 minutes, just look around this room, okay? Shaping, pouring, and milling glass, lumber, metal fasteners, and there's how many of them? Screws, bolts, nuts, washers, right? Manufacturing window treatment, so that's blinds, curtains. I'm looking around my room. I'm just looking around my room. Huh. Oh, of course, I've got an Apple computer right here. I've got a screen by Acer. I've got a Logitech camera. I've got this thing, whatever that is. I got something else over here. I got LED bulbs. Where do they come from? Who the fuck knows? And how many parts go into just manufacturing an LED bulb? Okay. You want me to spend 20 minutes doing this? Do I really have to spend 20 minutes? And where did this coffee come from? And where did the water come from that I've used to brew the coffee? And where'd the cup come from? I think it comes from Italy. Do I have to do this? This microphone, that keyboard, this pair of reading glasses. Do I have to do this? The hippies will tell you. The progressives, the woke, they'll tell you. A group of people can save the world. But a group of people can't get you off of fossil fuels. And they won't. The group of people will jump in their SUV, drive down to the community center, sit around in a circle, sing Kumbaya, and try to solve the world's problems with global heating, climate change. Okay, they'll sit around. They'll drink tea and they'll smoke pot and they'll come up with all these solutions and all this stuff, and then they'll go home patting themselves and each other on the back. They'll go home and watch Netflix and eat popcorn and pizza. Vegan pizza. I'm not blaming them. I probably would be them. I'd be going there. I'd be having the meeting. I'd come back and watch Netflix and eat vegan pizza. I'd be that guy. And I'd feel pretty good about what I'm doing. And I'd be quoting Margaret Atwood the entire time. Well, never doubt that a small group of people, okay? Because that'd be my mantra. That'd be my Bible. Why am I doing this? Why am I showing up? So people will tell you, oh, we just have to do it ourselves. We can't trust the politicians. We can't trust the industrialists. We can't trust the lobbyists. We can't trust the UN, the IPCC process, the COP process. We can't trust the scientists really anymore because they're completely incorporated into all those other things. And so we'll just have to do it ourselves. And you can't. Because you can't stop burning fossil fuels. I can buy an electric car. That car was manufactured using fossil fuels. And for that matter, unless you've got solar panels on your house, you're charging it from whatever the electricity is that's being delivered to your house, which could be generated by coal. And even if you have solar panels and batteries and all that stuff, that was all manufactured using fossil fuels. So you can't even have those things. You can't even have them without talking about, you're dependent on fossil fuels to even have your electric car and your solar panels and your batteries to charge your car. So what can you do? Well, this is a wicked problem, boys and girls. This is a wicked problem. You can do exactly nothing. This is not in your wheelhouse. You can't solve this. Nobody can solve this. No single person can solve this. No group of people can solve this. No group of people at any level in the way our society is currently organized can solve this. They can't. They haven't. They won't. Simple. They can't. They haven't. They're not doing it now. And they won't. So what can you do? The short answer is actually one word. Survive. That's your responsibility. You can't solve this problem. You can't unsink the Titanic. You've got a first-class ticket. You might even be a licensed engineer. You might even be a shipbuilder. And you're on the Titanic and you're heading for New York and now it's sinking. You can't change that. What can you do? You can survive. You could do that. You could curse the captain and curse the first mate and curse the shipbuilder and curse the iceberg and curse God and curse nature and the universe, and then you still have to decide whether you're going to survive or not. Am I going to survive? If you say, yeah, I think I want to survive this, well then, can you? Do you have any agency to ensure your survival? Because you might not. What if there's no lifeboats on the Titanic? Well, there were some. Okay. Do you know where they are? Okay, so now you found a lifeboat. Can you get in it? And once you're in it, will someone lower it down into the water for you? There's a lot of loose ends you're going to have to stitch together to be on a lifeboat, floating away from the Titanic as it goes stem first down into the frozen Atlantic. So, but all of that starts with you deciding that, yes, by cracky, I am going to survive this. That's my plan. I'm going to survive this. Curse the captain, curse the shipbuilder, curse the first mate, curse the navigator, curse the person, curses upon the person who was up on the bow. You're supposed to be looking for icebergs. Who was probably ogling the young women. Okay, curses upon that. A pox upon him and his family. Okay, and curse the fact that this ship was ever built, and curse me for buying a first-class ticket to New York on the maiden voyage of the unsinkable Titanic. Curses, and poxes upon everyone. And then, all right, that felt good, but now I have to survive. That's your task, my friend. That's your task. You have nothing. No one is coming for you. They're not going to pick you up like a child and put you in a lifeboat. They're not going to do it. They have no plan. They're not even talking about having a plan. They're not even talking about why they might need to talk about having a plan. They are nowhere near ushering you to a lifeboat. You're going to have to do that. Well, no, you don't have to do that, actually, because, you don't have to survive it. You don't have to. And some people might even think, oh, well, if this ship is going down, being on a lifeboat, a stinking, sinking, leaky lifeboat in the middle of the North Atlantic, that sounds like just prolonging the inevitable. Why don't I just go down with the ship? Where's the bar? Give me a line them up, whiskeys, right? I'm going to get blackout drunk and I'm going to go down with the ship. You could do that. And the equivalent in our current situation with global heating, climate change, is you could just say, fine, I like my life and I don't want any changes. And if I have to go down with the ship, well, maybe that's the quickest way out. And you could just literally decide, I have to decide to survive or not. And if I decide to survive, I have a lot of work to do. That doesn't appeal. Or I could just take my hit, take my loss, and just go down with the ship. I could go down blackout drunk, surrounded by beautiful women, all of us going down with the ship. That would be attractive to some people. But if you decide you're going to survive it instead, then you have a challenge. Now, so when someone comes along and says, we're going to solve climate change to global heating from the bottom up, that should never be construed to imply or mean in any way, however flimsy, that they're going to solve global heating from the bottom up. Not even by you personally not using fossil fuels to drive, because that's about all you could do. Because you could get an electric car, or you could take a bus, or ride a bike. Okay, those are things you could do in your life, but that's not going to change the situation on the ground. Plus, you have all this. You're surrounded by all this manufacturing, including your food. It's all manufactured, and so you're still embedded in a system that's using copious amounts of fossil fuels in your name. The food on the shelves, how it got there, and where it came from, and how many miles it had to be carried on a cargo plane. You will never consume differently because you can't. Even an electric car is manufactured. Solar panels are manufactured. Vegan, fake meat is manufactured. Fake vegan dairy products are manufactured. They're more heavily manufactured than the real dairy products. It might be sixes, but it's probably true. It's probably true. Industrialized foods are industrialized. You could have a cow, get your own milk, make your own butter, make your own cheese. I mean, you could do that. No manufacturing involved, right? You could, in theory, do that. Do you do that? No. Could you do that? Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, different environment, different skills. You don't have the skills, but you could get them. You could get the skills, and you could do that. So real dairy is always going to be less manufacturing than fake dairy, fake meat, fake everything else. I eat that stuff because we're vegan here in this household. And why are we vegan? Well, there's lots of reasons to be vegan, and even for supposedly health reasons. And you don't want to contribute to animal cruelty, and so that's another reason. All these things, but you're not going to consume your way out of global heating. And you could say, well, at least I'm not contributing to the problem. Oh, yes, you are. Yes, you are. Well, but I feel good about what I'm doing. Oh, that's fine. Oh, yeah. You can virtue signal. You can think your health is better. You can say, well, I'm not participating in animal cruelty, but there wasn't one dairy cow that was milked even one tiny split second less because you didn't drink milk. There you go. You just feel good about your health choices and your lifestyle choices, and that's great. You do that. There's no amount of individual lifestyle choices that's going to stop global heating. No chance. But what can you do? You can get to a lifeboat. You can do that. There's no amount of walking up and down the deck of the Titanic, cursing the captain and cursing the first mate and cursing the shipbuilder that's going to stop the Titanic from sinking. But you can get off. You can choose to survive, and you can get off. You can leave and get away. You can run away from it. That's all it is. You're running away. Now, I wrote a book linked in the description called It Was 100 Days, about a group of people who find themselves in that situation. The Titanic is sinking. It's not the Titanic. It's the global economy. The global economy is sinking, as did the Titanic, and they decide that rather than race into the hills with a bunch of guns and dogs, they're going to try and tough it out. And they learn pretty quick that what that looks like, what toughing it out looks like in practice, and what you're headed for, even though you don't know this up front, but what you're headed for, what constitutes a lifeboat for you as you decide not to die, okay, that you're going to survive, and you're going to work with your neighbors and with your own skills and their skills combined. You're going to work together to get to a lifeboat, or not having one. You're going to build a lifeboat quickly, and you're going to get onto it, and you're going to survive this. And what does that look like? I wrote a book. It ends up looking like village life. And these are not medieval villages, right? You can call this scrap metal civilization. So it's not the Bronze Age, not the Iron Age, it's the scrap metal age. So, they have a lot of things, and I think it's realistic in that sense. They have some scraps of government left over. They have some vestiges of industrialized agriculture still available. Silos full of grain, right? Silos are still there. Can you get to the silos? Can you back up a truck and take some of the grain? Sure. Why not? You could blow the silo up with dynamite if you had some, and just take the grain out with a shovel. So there's residues of industrialized agriculture that can be around for years. Probably not much longer than 1 or 2 years, but hey, it's there. So in the meantime, with a little bit of help, a little bit of support, kind of greasing the wheels a little bit, you can recreate village life in the post-collapse world. And that's what the book is about. It was 100 days. Already thinking about a sequel. And not that the first edition, took off in sales, because no one really wants to deal with this, but I have a responsibility as a scientist who thinks about these topics to try and steer people in their thinking in the direction of choosing to survive, because that's what you can do. You can do that. You can make that choice. You can choose to survive. Will you? Well, I don't know. Probably not. But you could. You have agency. But you can't do it by yourself. And that's why someone like me has to come along and write a book. Link in the description. Priced to move. I don't need to make any money out of this at all. Okay, I'm doing pretty well here, and I just need to get the information out there, and hopefully it makes a difference for somebody down the road. And you don't have much time, so get it now, read it now, think about it now, and wait for the sequel, which I'm thinking about. I should probably write it. It takes me a long time to think about things. I do world building, so I have to think about things for a while. Plus, I have other stories that are more interesting to me right now. Fiction, things like that. So we'll see. I mean, it's all fiction, because none of the things I'm talking about in the books have actually transpired. But we're on glide path. We're going there, right? We've already hit the iceberg. So that part isn't fiction. And, just how this thing falls out, that's the only speculative part. Something's going to happen, and I've made my best guess. But we've already hit the iceberg, so we're sinking. So now what happens? That's the question. What happens over 100 days as the ship goes down? The ship of our global economy goes down. It is interesting. It was interesting to write. I really piled information into it. I even have like mini lectures in there, little TED Talks. There's like 6 or 8 of them in there that are just basically TED Talks, just brain dumps, like I do on these channels. Better organized, of course. This blog stuff is pretty disorganized. But you could decide to do that. And now the problem is that the fish rots from the head. So the rot, the corruption, the orientation towards consumerism and business as usual, that's going to interfere with you. That's going to interfere. So the way that's handled in the book is that the people who decide to survive, and who knows when they started having that decision, right? They may have decided to survive years before the actual catastrophe hit, but they just couldn't do anything about it. But because they were thinking about it, they were kind of mentally prepared for the idea that they're going to have to decide to survive or not, right? So they got some of the gears already turning. They got some momentum in the gearing here. Then when the day comes, they're not caught surprised. They're like, well, knew that was going to come. So where am I in this process? What do we have to do? Okay, let me think. I need to talk to my neighbors. We're going to figure this out. And so that's the 100 days. The wheels come off, and on day one, people are talking to their neighbors out in the street, like, well, this was unexpected. What do you think is going on here? What have you heard? And, after a while, they start to get themselves together, and after a while, they start to pull it together. I think that's how it works. Now, the progressives and the optimists will tell you, we could start this process early. We could get people of a like mind, and we can sit down and talk. And okay, yeah, maybe. I think that'd be a great idea. Talk to your neighbors, have get-togethers and talk about the problem. Talk about how the fish rots from the head. And if you want to be cynical about government and politics, go right ahead, because yeah, it's rotten. But setting that aside, do you want to survive? Because if not, well, then we have nothing to talk about. Why would I talk to you? If you haven't decided to survive, if that's not like top of mind, what do we have to talk about? I mean, you want to bellyache and bitch about how the fish rots at the top? And that's like entertainment for you? Yeah, okay, fine. I'll listen for about 20 seconds. I mean, that's really my level of tolerance at this point. I'll listen for about 20 seconds. And then I'll say, yeah, fine, whatever. I mean, you're right, of course. But I would like to deal with things that are more productive, okay? How do you start this? How do you proceed? How do you take this bull by the horns and do something, anything, now, soon, to address your acceptance that your challenge, your personal challenge, is not to end global heating, is not to leave fossil fuels in the ground. Your personal challenge is not to elect the right politicians. Your personal challenge is not to vote every 4, 5, 6 years for somebody who claims that they're going to have a solution, whatever the fuck that means. We've been looking at solutionary people for generations now, and nothing. There's nothing, people. There's nothing. So you can choose to do all that, or you can simply say, all right, that's not working. Okay, that's not working. And this is bad enough, this is going to be lethal enough that I'm going to die. So, is that okay? And you could say, no, that's not okay. And you could read my book. And then you could talk to your neighbors. And you could hand the book around. You could say, here, I've just finished this. You need to read this. It's gonna blow your circuit breakers, but you need to read it. And next week we're going to talk about this. We're going to figure out what our neighborhood is going to do. Can we do anything that's in here? Can we do anything? Is there anything on the menu in this book that we can do? Start with. Okay, maybe you could. You could. Even now, 2 years ahead of the collapse of civilization, you could start doing things. There's things you can do right now that are oriented towards your survival. What would they be? It's not learning survival skills. However, you'd be surprised what constitutes survival in a village context of many people coming together to try and forge a resilient community against the sinking of our global Titanic, okay? You'd be surprised what would be useful. If you have a hobby, you like woodworking, carving wood or something, then take up furniture building. Something that would be handy, like a chair or stools or anything else, because in the process you'll accumulate books and tools and the skills to use the tools, and you'll have everything you need to make furniture. And even if you just give the furniture away, it doesn't matter. You're building a skill. What if you want to be able to build habitat? So you know what goes into a building, or maybe you don't. Buy a book. What goes into a house? I know all about that because I build things, okay? So you could buy a book, How to Build a House. There's probably a book on Amazon somewhere at your library, right? You can check out a book in front of your library. It's probably an old book. It's been around for 20 years. How to Build a House. What are all the things that go into a house? Well, it could even be a children's book. It doesn't matter. You'll learn something, because right now you don't know anything. You think you do, but you don't. So you could go check that book out, read it, hand it around to your friends. Hey, we need to all be able to do this. Housing is really complicated, and we need to know how to do this. And so you could learn. You could read a couple of books. You could learn something about household electricity. You could learn something about solar power. Okay, and if you want to go a little further, you could get solar panels installed on your rooftop. Or if you don't want to spend a lot of money, you could have a small solar array that does just enough of all the connected things to charge your cordless tools, right? Your battery operated tools. And it isn't like that's important. And maybe you'd spend a lot of money just to charge your batteries for your cordless tools. But in the case where civilization has collapsed and the power becomes intermittent or simply not there at all, your little solar array that can charge power tools, cordless tools, would be a lifesaver. And all of your corded tools that are really cheap to operate and they're cheap to purchase, plug them into a wall, they're scrap. They're completely scrap. They're garbage. They're ballast. Throw them away or keep them. Maybe you can do something with them down the road. But you can use the motors possibly for some other project if you ever have electricity. But your cordless tools charged by your solar array have immediate ongoing utility. You can figure that out. You could figure out how to store rainwater. You could do that. Even if you don't have a big rainwater storage thing, you at least wrap your head around it. What do you have to have? A food grade barrel, plastic that doesn't rust. You have to have a screen over it so that the animals don't get into it, especially the mosquitoes. And then you have to put it under a downspout. You direct the downspout in, but right now your downspout goes all the way to the ground and goes out in the driveway. So you have to buy a little adapter that fits in the middle. You just insert it in the middle. You have to have tools to do that. And then that has a little gate that you can open and close. And when it's open, the water goes straight down the spout, and when it's closed, it diverts it into your barrel, right? When your barrel's full, then you can just divert it the other way and it just goes right back down again. You can figure all that out. And you can then tell your neighbors, yeah, look, I'm collecting rainwater. They're going to say, oh, hey, that's pretty cool. I'd like to do that too. And they would want to do it because they're nervous. And they don't know how they're going to survive. No, a barrel of rainwater doesn't save you. But knowing that you can capture rainwater and having that thought in your head, okay? This is your thought. You've got the process. Okay? Then you can scale that up, right? Starts here, one barrel, one diverter, one gutter. I'm collecting rainwater now, and I can use it in my garden. I can give it to the birds, whatever I want to do with it, but I've got it, okay? And now I know how to do that. Plus, I'm thinking about that's the thing to do. You see how this works? And you can do these things in your life. You can become a carpenter. You can become an electrician. You can just read the books about it so you at least know what the fuck is going on, right? You can work with community organizations that are like Habitat for Humanity they're popping up low-income housing for people. You just go volunteer your time. You say, yeah, I'm here to learn. Oh, good. You bring some basic tools? Awesome. These are pretty good tools. You're learning, but you're kind of ready to go. So here, we'll put you on this project. We'll put you on that project. And you're working with other people, mostly men, but sometimes women. And you're popping up mobile portable housing, and you're volunteering your time, and maybe you get something out of it, like a meal or something. But mostly, it's up here. It's up here. You could do this today. You could do this today. Work. This is the work. Why would you do that? Because you've made the decision today, right now, because of what I've been telling you, that the fish rots from the head, and you are going to be tossed to the curb by your leaders. And now you're thinking, okay, I accept my personal responsibility, which humans have accepted personal responsibility for 300,000 years. Humans, Homo sapiens, we have accepted responsibility for survival for 300,000 years. My turn. My turn. I have my comfortable life, but I've got global heating. I'm thinking about global heating, and I'm thinking I need to start planning how I'm going to survive this in a community and what I can bring to that community. You can do that now. Read my book. Read my book. Will you? Probably not. Fine. I mean, I don't hold that against you. I don't hold that against anybody. This is a big commitment. This is a big commitment. Like getting on the Titanic, which says right on the ticket, unsinkable. And yet, you decide to go find out where the lifeboats are, how big they are, and how they're let down. And you're looking at the situation. I see there's a davit crane and a winch, and it looks like it's manual with a crank. It looks like each lifeboat can hold about 40 people. Okay, that's fine. Now I know where the lifeboats are. You could do that. You could get on the Titanic, which doesn't sink. Maiden voyage. Never had any problems with it. Never sank. Won't sink on this trip. You could get on the Titanic and immediately go looking for the lifeboats. You could do that. And in the case of the actual Titanic, that would have been a smart move. Who knew? Who knew? It's like going to your friend's house, friend's apartment, in a big multi-story apartment where your friend is on like the 4th floor, the 5th floor. And you get to your friend's apartment, you come out of the elevator, you go to your friend's apartment, and before you knock on the door, you look around and say, so where's the fire exit? You see one? Well, that says exit. But is that stairwell? I'm going to go check it. Check the stairwell. Yeah, this is a stairwell. Okay. Oh, now I see there's another one at the end of the other end of the hall. Okay, so there's 2 stairwells out. That tracks. Okay, so now I know where the stairwells are. In the case of a fire, I'm going to be in that motherfucking stairwell. Like, fast. And I know where they are. I could even find the stairwell now, the escape stairwell, fire escape, in the dark, in a hall full of smoke. Because you know where it is. You just saw it. Oh yeah, stairwell. That's the fire escape. Good. Okay. And this one's closer. So I come out the front door and I turn left and I go straight down the hall. If there's full of smoke, you're crawling, right? You can't see anything. I go straight down the hall. And even if the electricity is out, you know where you're going. And you're in the door, it opens, it swings right. Or it swings in. Yeah, it swings in. And then I go down the stairs. And once I'm on the stairs, there's a handrail. I can figure it out from there. So, and then you knock on your friend's door and you go into the party. You could be that person. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. The fish rots from the head. This thing is going down. They're not going to save you. But if you know where the fire escape is, you can save yourself. If you know where the lifeboat is and how to operate the lifeboat, get it into the sea, then you can save yourself. If you know how to make furniture and how to garden and how to create soil out of dirt, then if you know how to build fences and if you know how to fix small engines and if you know how to build habitat, including electrical and plumbing, if you've worked with people who do these things, if you've been on projects where these things are done, then that's the equivalent of knowing where the lifeboats are. Here's what you can do now. Now, the rod at the top is not going to let you form a village. They're not going to let you do that. But when the Titanic is sinking, they're not going to stop you, are they? They're going to be too busy trying to abandon ship like a bunch of rats. They're not going to care what you're doing. They're not going to care that you got together with your neighbors and knocked down all the fences inside your apartment and did something to save yourself. Ray Zay, thank you for joining. Leave comments. Sometimes I see them. I don't always, but sometimes I do. It's just me on here. So that's what I had to say today. The fish rots from the head. The government's not going to help you. In fact, they will hinder you because they don't want to start a panic or allow you to start a panic. But you can do things for yourself. And that's working from the bottom up. You're not going to stop global heating. You're not going to stop the collapse of civilization. You're not going to have any input on the political landscape. You're not going to change anything in society. You're not going to change any of your neighbors. You're not going to change anybody in your family. All you're going to do at this point, all you can do, and what I recommend you must do, is accept the individual responsibility to not die, to survive. You must accept responsibility to survive. I've said it on this channel before. I'll say it again. When the wheels come off of this civilization, as they must, as they will, I don't know if it's next year, or the year after that, or 5 years later, but it will happen. And when it happens, it's going to be too soon. Okay? Whenever it happens, it's going to be too soon. When it happens, 999 people out of 1,000 will perish. That's how dependent we are on this entire thing. All of this. The grocery stores, the gasoline stations, the electricity, the water deliveries to your home, all of it, every part of it. That's how we survive. The built human world is 99.9% dependent on fossil fuels. And without those fossil fuel inputs 24/7, 99.9% of the people die. 99.9%. That's 999 people out of 1,000. will perish. That's not extinction. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. But if given that there are currently 8,000 million humans on Earth, that's 8 billion, said another way, 8,000 million, a 99.9% die-off still leaves 8 million people. That's a lot of people. You'd have to go pretty far back in history to find when there was fewer people than that. That's a lot of people. And we're not Stone Age. We're not even hunter-gatherers. We have all the vestiges of modern agriculture. We'd be a scrap age, a scrap metal age, not a bronze age, not an iron age, but a scrap metal age. But there's probably some really useful scrap metal. Whole computer systems will be considered scrap, but you can use them, sure. Do you know how to set up an email system for your local community? That'd be nice, right? And if you can set up Wi-Fi, you can use your cell phones on Wi-Fi. Not to call each other, but to send messages, you can do that. If you have a local message server, SMS server, email server, and you set up all your mail clients to use your local service, you could have your cell phone. You could charge it from your solar power, and you could have a little computer system, a little tiny network on Wi-Fi from your solar power, and you could have local messaging and possibly even email, local messaging. Could you do? Oh yeah, you could probably do voice over Wi-Fi. I don't know. There's probably an app for that. So if you figured it out in advance, you could have these things, because we would be living in a scrap metals age. Scrap metal age, but some of the scrap metal is pretty cool. Oh, and the landscape would be chock-a-block with solar panels. And if you know how to string together solar panels and get useful voltage out of them and pile those into a charge controller and charge a battery bank, if you have to size your battery bank correctly, and they all have to be the same capacity, but I know how that works because I have a battery bank and I price things all the time, buy them, I throw them on my battery array. And then you'd have to have, big inverters, and you'd have to be able to tie inverters together. You'd have to have all your inverters syncing each other, and primary and secondary inverters. You have to wire all that together and decide how that's going to be managed, and you'd have nothing but equipment in your scrap metal age. Digital scrap. I have everything I need on this property. All I have to do is build it out. I could build out a local electric grid. It's in the book. Read it. Read the book. It was 100 days. Link in the description. Basically, it's a cookbook. It's kind of a cookbook for people who say, okay, it's rotten at the top. It's rotten at the head. I choose to survive. The book is written by a bunch of people who chose to survive. And the ones who didn't survive make no contribution to the story, because they can't, because they're dead. And nobody knows how they died or when or where. They just didn't make it, because they didn't choose to survive. They choose to do something else. They chose to be criminals. They chose to run in their car, get on the freeway, and try to head to Timbuktu. And they chose to fight with their AR-15 and their pit bull. And they chose all these other things, and then they died. Because those are not survival pathways. They're fighting pathways, flight pathways, running away pathways, corruption pathways, theft pathways, but they're not forming a village and growing food pathways, which is how you survive. That should be clear. Yeah, there'll be enough food in the markets to last a week. There'll be enough bottled water in the markets to last 2 days. There'll be enough gas in the stations to last 24 hours. And then you don't have a story. And no one's going to hear your story because you did not choose one day, all right, fuck this, I'm going to survive. And because you've taken the time to think about what that means, you have an action plan. I'm going to survive. I'm going to get with my neighbors who I already know really well. And I know some of them are carpenters and electricians, and some of them cook really well, and somebody knows how to preserve food. We've got some really great gardeners in our neighborhood, and we're going to circle our wagons, and we're going to knock down the fences in our backyards, and we're going to use those fence boards to build a perimeter, and we're going to guard the perimeter, and we're going to stick together. We're going to take care of each other, and we're going to survive. Because the lone monkey is a dead monkey. The lone monkey is a dead monkey. And you intend to survive. So you could do that. You could do things. Will you? I hope so. I hope you do. I hope you do. And if you're not sure how to start or what any of that means, it sounds like gobbledygook and the fish rots from the head. So what? We can't change that. Buy my book. Buy my book. By the time you get to the end, you'll get it, because that's what it's about. It's about choosing to survive. Not to be the meanest SOB on the hill, not to have the most guns, not to have the meanest dog, not to be running away from the zombie apocalypse, although the book does have zombies in it. They're kind of a joke. That's why they're there, for humor, right? Yeah, real zombies, real, yeah, the whole thing. So the book is intended to get you to think about this. Just think about it. Just think about it. Choosing to survive. What does that look like? If I was on the Titanic, I'd be looking for lifeboats. How do you operate the lifeboats? How many people can be on a lifeboat? How's it go in the water? Does it have oars? Does it have sails? What's this boat got? Okay, that's choosing to survive in the case that the Titanic goes down. In the case that this civilization goes down, which pretty much it must. I don't know how they're going to pull this thing out of the fire. I just don't know how. The leadership is just not there. So they're not going to do it. So since they're not going to do it, it's going to go down. And since it's going to go down, you're going to have this choice. Are you going down with the ship, or are you choosing to survive? Decisions, right? Well, choose now. Don't choose on the day it goes down, because you're going to be ill prepared. Choose now. Choose now. Choose now to survive, and buy my book, because that's the story of the people who chose to survive and what they had to do. And there's a bunch of people, and they did really well. And really, the book is really, starting about halfway through, it becomes really optimistic. They got a handle on things, man. They got a handle. They're working it, baby. They are working this. Someone could come along and say, well, that's unrealistic. Okay, but it doesn't have to work everywhere. It can be unrealistic for 9 villages out of 10. But this book is about the village that made it. They worked it, and they survived. And they were able to tell their tale. And that's the book. It was 100 Days, written by the survivors. It's a journal, a diary, right? So it's just recounting most of it in real time. So each day is a day in the life. So most of it is real time, recounting what they did and how they did it, and the problems they had and the solutions they came up with, and the things they couldn't fix, and the things that they lost and couldn't retrieve, and the people who died and couldn't be saved, okay? But in the end, in 100 days, are we here? Wait, did we do this? We're still alive. Wait, what did we do? How did we do this? Whose idea was this? Because we're here. We're alive. Wow. We all decided we were going to survive, and we did. Wow. That's where you want to be when the wheels come off. 100 days after the wheels come off, that's where you want to be. Sitting around with your friends over a campfire of scrap wood, with the children sleeping on a blanket near the fire, staying warm, and you've got your gardens around you, and you've got your overhead wires from your solar electric, and you've got people drinking wine that they made themselves, and they're laughing, and you're sitting around the fire and you're saying, did we do it? Hold on. Someone says it's been 100 days. Wait, is that important? We did it. We did something. We didn't go down with the ship. 100 days. Yeah, there's more work to do, and we could still blow it somehow. The plague could come through and kill us all in a week, but did we do it? What did we do? That's the conversation you want to have in 100 days. That's where you want to be. Alive. You have to start working on that now. The fish rots from the head. That's not where you are. You could survive this, but it's up to you. So I've stopped now. That's enough of that. My last video is really short because it got all kind of screwed up. My wife was looking for her phone or something, and the phone was ringing, and she was coming in and out of here, and it's not her fault. She needed her phone, but it kind of screwed up the video. So I stopped it ahead of time. But it's about narrative warfare, and you should go watch that one too, because what the head of the fish is doing now, part of the rot is they're engaging in narrative warfare. And unless you really brought your game, unless you really brought your critical thinking game, they're just stringing you along. Oh, well, they have to do that. Oh, I understand why they're doing that. They are doing that. No, and they're very good. I'm really surprised how good they are at this. I mean, I shouldn't be, because there's a lot of propagandists and lawyers and wordsmiths, and they know what they have to do, and they're doing it. So, well played, I guess. But still, it's narrative warfare, and they're keeping you in the dark. You don't have to be. You came here, so you're less in the dark than you would have been otherwise. So, good for you. And I do these videos 3-4 times a week. There's always something. I talk about different things, and if you binge watch my videos, you'll come out of here understanding things that are almost impossible to understand outside of the context of the topics that I cover. I'm it. I'm really it, and I know what I'm doing, and do come back. Like the video, we'll get more views, and also subscribe, because like I say, I do this all the time, and people who watch my stuff say they like it, and they can't get this kind of stuff anywhere else. So hang around. We're doing this, okay? We're surviving. I choose to survive. Yeah, and it's not what you think. I'll tell you what it is, but it's not what you think. So come back, hang around, and we'll see what we can do for you. And in the meantime, as I always say, very critical, and you need to embrace this, don't die, okay? Don't die.